This is something that everybody should know. Everybody should act. You know, the last statistics I saw is that 95% of the people in this country do not have a living trust. And as a result, what's going to happen is they're going to be going into probate. And probate is something that you want to stay out of as much as you possibly can, because as I said, it's very time consuming and very, very expensive. And it causes an awful lot of grief within families. I mean, I've seen that firsthand in my family and also in other families as well. Let me probably state the most important thing that I want to get across today. And that is that the only way, the absolute only way that you are going to avoid probate is with a living trust. Even if you have a will and you die intestate or testate, you still are going to probate. So the only way that you can avoid this is through a living trust. And the living trust will make things much easier of what they're going to do with all of the assets, whether that's real estate, stocks, bonds, anything. And so the key to this is going to be a living trust.
Hi there, good day. Welcome to our little episode today. We're going to talk about probate, but we have a very, very special guest, and his name is Gary Sinclair. He's on Wikipedia page, crying out loud. He does. He was an amazing soccer coach for San Jose State for many, many decades. Won a bunch of trophies and a whole bunch of games. And right now, he is one of the top agents in Silicon Valley as far as real estate agent is concerned, being a real estate agent is concerned. He's also my mentor. I'm so glad to have him. Gary, welcome to my show.
Well, thank you, Charlie. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I need to ask you, in your soccer career, what is the biggest highlight of your soccer career ever?
By far, in 1975, I was a member of the U.S. Olympic team in soccer. And whenever we would play different countries, Mexico, Bermuda, Israel, Greece, and other countries. The ability to stand out and be able to put my hand over my heart and watch and listen to the national anthem was by far the greatest honor that I've ever had in soccer.
You had some amazing experiences. I mean, I cannot imagine, playing for your country. So what made you go from soccer to want to go into real estate?
Well, I pretty much in my working career have had two passions. One is obviously soccer, both as a player and as a coach. But also my other passion is real estate. I've been involved in real estate since the late 1970s in one way or another, and got my license in 1987, became a broker, and I really enjoy helping people one-on-one.
I gotta say, ever since I got in contact with you, I wish I was 30 years younger. I mean, you're a really good coach as far as real estate is concerned. I would have loved to, become a soccer player under you. Unfortunately, I'm a little too old for that right now. It's my huge passion, and one of the really good things, something we'll share is, way to go, Manchester United. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Okay, we won't waste too much time on this. But we're just going to jump into the topic that we want to talk about, and we're going to talk about trust and probate. Without further ado, I'm just going to let you talk us through what a trust and probate is.
Sure. Well, I just mentioned that I like to help people, and I don't think that I can help people more than talking about this issue, because this is an issue that can be 100% prevented. At the same time, it is something that will cost you an awful lot of time, an awful lot of money, and relationships within your family. So this is something that everybody should know. Everybody should act. The last statistics I saw is that 95% of the people in this country do not have a living trust. And as a result, what's going to happen is they're going to be going into probate. And probate is something that you want to stay out of as much as you possibly can. Because, as I said, it's very time-consuming and very, very expensive. And it causes an awful lot of grief within families. And so
It rips families apart if you don't have a proper will. And basically, a probate is something, how people are going to, how the system is going to make sure your assets, what you leave behind to your family goes into exactly where you want it to go. And if you don't spell it out prior to your death, after you go, it rips families apart.
yeah, I mean, I've seen that firsthand
Wow.
in my family and also in other families as well. Let me probably state the most important thing that I want to get across today. And that is that the absolute only way that you are going to avoid probate is with a living trust. Even if you have a will and you die intestate or testate, you still are going to probate. So the only way that you can avoid this is through a living trust. And the living trust will make things much easier, give families control of what they're going to do with all of the assets, whether that's real estate, stocks, bonds, anything. And so the key to this is going to be a living trust. Now, there are some issues in probate, about 1% of 1%, that you can avoid probate if you have, for example, a small piece of land or something under a certain amount of value, but that is extremely rare. So my call to everybody that may be listening to this is get a living trust.
Cool. Okay. You've got some slides prepared for us today. You wanna walk us through?
Sure. So essentially what probate is to essentially finish up everything that was unfinished. So if you have a living trust and it is fully filled with what it needs to happen, then you won't be involved in this whatsoever. But what's going to happen is that this is the legal transfer within the state of California of assets, houses, cars, stocks, you name it. And essentially what it is it's a way to get to the rightful heirs what is theirs. Okay, so again, when we're talking about probate, we're talking about wills and no wills. So understand that you can write a good will out, it's still going to probate. And, it's going to be easier if you have a will, but it's still going to be it's going to take time and it's going to take money because you're going to have attorneys involved, you're going to have the courts involved, and that's very important. Now, the other thing is that if the decedent passes away and has some tax liability or other liabilities they have to creditors, during probate is when that will be discovered, and that's when it will be paid at the end of probate. Now, here's a big one. Average probate process can take up to 9 to 18 months. Some can even go longer. So it's imperative that families have living trusts to prevent this from going on.
Cool. Okay, so that covers the first slide and what probate is. And if somebody passes away, testate or intestate, you still need to go into the probate process. But if you go intestate, it basically the process can be 9 to 18 months, and it can get really, really ugly. But if it's testate, then if you leave a will, then this process is not only shortened, but a lot of painful arguments or disagreements between family members can be sorted out.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay.
So probate takes place in the county that you're in. The state of California clearly has probate laws, and your local county will be where probates would begin and where they would be adjudicated and where they will end as well. Okay, so a probate oversees the settlement of the estate, however big or however small that is going to be. So if you have a will, probate will validate that will. In other words, that gives the judge and the court the ability to decide and to see and to hear what the decedent's wishes were. So a legal will is better than having no will, but it is not as good as a living trust. So people can avoid probate even if they have a legal will. It's that simple. And I can't say that enough, because people have always grown up on, hey, I have a will, you get the will, you read it, and this kind of stuff. Well, unfortunately, that's not all that you need to do. So the only way to avoid a probate is have a living trust that is fully funded. Okay. For example, though, there are some cases that you have a living trust that you still will be going into probate at some point. Let me give you an example. Part of the biggest assets we have is our house, the equity we have in our house. Okay, so many people in Silicon Valley here have $1 million, $2 million, dollars of equity, and this kind of thing. So let's say before a decedent dies, husband and wife, they refinance their mortgage, and the mortgage company takes the loan, and they take it out of the trust. And suddenly one of the, one or both pass away, then this is going to have to go into probate, and it's going to have to be, there's a petition called a Hegstad petition, and that is essentially for the court to say, okay, let's put that house back into the trust. So what we have to do is we have to keep up with our living trust. We have to make sure that they're current, because a lot of people end up getting a living trust and it just sits in a binder somewhere. 15, 20 years later, things change.
Okay.
So it's very, very important that you keep that living trust fully funded.
Cool. Probate files are also public information.
That's correct. So let me give you an idea about this. One of the issues is that you have a will or you have a living trust. If you can't find that, because this is not recorded, this is public information, the death of the decedent and the opening of probate, that is public information. But the point is that, it's extremely, extremely important that people understand that there are things that can change constantly, and so they have to be able to do that. To do that. So this is done in the Superior Court. For example, you have a decedent, and the family wants to get this taken care of. So what happens is that they can't find the will or they can't find the living trust. If they can't do that, they're headed to probate. So It's extremely important that they keep copies. It's extremely important that they can do digital copies, but it's very important that they have access to where that is when they need it. Because if not, they have a fully funded living trust and nobody can find it, they're going to probate.
Cool. And this is going to flow into your next slide. Who are the main parties to a probate?
Well, the key party is always going to be the personal representative, the administrator, or executor. So we call a personal representative is going to be typically a family member. And by the way, these terms are pretty well interactive.
Right.
Some places call them administrators, some call them personal representatives. We and the court typically call them personal representatives. Now, personal representative who oversees the liquidation of the estate, that's the person that is appointed, that applies for and is appointed by the court. And that person's job is to finish up the administration of the probate. And so that person, you have to understand, there are two things. One is that person's going to work awfully, awfully hard.
Right.
Okay, I mean, we're talking about, we're talking about clearing, let's say we have a property, clearing out the house. We're talking about hiring a realtor. We're talking about hiring if they don't have an attorney, because that's very important as well. It's about getting everything sold, estate sales, you name it. So that person is going to work awfully, awfully hard, and that person is probably going to be, in some cases, the brunt of unhappy family. So that's going to be very difficult. The second thing is that person gets paid. That person gets paid just like the attorney gets paid. So there's kind of a, I don't want to do this reason, but on the same course, I want to do this. So that's the key person, and that is the person that will typically go and file probate. Now, they usually do it in conjunction with their estate planning attorney. The probate
Well,
clerk handles everything down at the courthouse. The probate attorney files the legal paperwork. There's an awful lot of that. And of course, the heirs are going to be, you want that, you want them to be part of it, and it doesn't all fall on the personal representative, and you want to try and make it as smooth as you possibly can. But the key person is the personal representative.
the executor can he be a beneficiary to the estate?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
because in some trust structures, the executor cannot be a beneficiary of the estate.
No.
Yeah. In this case, so he or she can be.
Yes, absolutely. So when we have a living trust, we call them successor trustees. When we have a will, or where there's no will involved, it's usually a personal representative or executor or something like that. But they can certainly be. Many times they're children. They're
Oh,
the parents who have passed away as their child. Um, that's very common.
I, I like to pick up on the word that you used earlier. You said that there will be a lot of very unhappy family members or heirs. Um, I thought that's quite funny because shouldn't it be a lot of family members who are in mourning? Yeah, yeah,
Well, I'll tell you something, Charlie, is that's initially what I thought, but that's not
right.
necessarily what goes on. Look,
Yeah,
the point person is a personal representative, and it's going too slow, or I'm not getting what, maybe a will was in there and I'm not getting as much as, I would like. And so they kind of be the target sometimes in doing this. Not always, but at times.
cool. Uh, how does the probate begin?
Well, first and foremost, you have to find what you have. And, obviously what I would suggest to people, and I do this with my clients, I always ask them if they have a living trust. If they do not, I give them referrals to estate planners that I work with in Silicon Valley that are top-notch professionals. Generally speaking, they have to find if there is a will or not. First and foremost, if there's a living trust and it's fully funded, no worries. We're done. But if it's not, then we have to find out if there is a will and who is the person who's the executor or personal representative. And if there's no will, then the person in charge is known as the administrator, and they have to file to the court to be the personal representative, or if it's named in a will, the executor. Now, they also have what we call professional fiduciaries. These are, best way to think of them are professional personal representatives. They do this for a living. Okay, so they generally are contacted by attorneys if there is nobody that wants to be a personal representative, or there is no personal representative. For example, somebody dies and they don't have family. So that way the court will step in and appoint somebody at that point.
And that happens a lot more often than we think it does, right?
Oh, believe me, it does. People are shocked, and the problem is they're shocked in a time when they're grieving and when all of this change is occurring, and it's the absolute worst time to be dealing with this.
You have a slide that says
Yeah,
who actually died.
yeah.
You mean the
Well, this
king
one
of
blew me.
pop died without a will?
Uh-huh. Well,
Oh
it
wow.
blows you away.
Wow.
that these people did. And many of these people had tremendous amounts of assets.
No.
And, sometimes it's people like this with the assets that don't take care of things before. And there are litigation going on many times. And sometimes these things last for over 2, 3, 4 years. It's not unusual. But it certainly tells you that these people should have been a little bit smarter about their planning.
Well, that is so sad.
Mhm.
And it causes a lot of, friction among the living
Mhm.
and, oh, wow. Okay. It's sad.
Mhm.
Uh, how does that probate begin?
Okay. Well, essentially everything. So it's going to take at least 3 months, typically speaking, to go into probate and get things before they actually start to happen. For example, if you have a realtor who they want to sell the house, and let's say that they have the ability to do so in a probate, has to be cleared, cleared by the judge. It takes at least 90 days to do that, just to get to that point. So everybody, we need to, to direct the position of who's getting what, who is going to be the executor. They're also about what kind of powers the executor or the personal representative actually has. So that's called full authority or limited authority. So, and I don't want to get deep into that, but that's something the attorney discusses with the judge. It also designates the heirs, and the executor or the personal representative initiates the probate process.
In this case, if the probate has a will, and this is, you have another slide that says that if a probate doesn't have a will, what's the fundamental difference between both of them?
The difference between testate and intestate?
Yes.
Well, one has a will, the other does not. Generally speaking, you're going to have a limited authority probate if there's no will. Okay, and that is most expensive, the most time consuming of all. And so a will is important because it really gives the judge direction on where the assets go for the heirs when probate is essentially finished at some point.
Oh, wow. Okay. And just to have a understanding of how much you can save, how much money you can save is how much you're going to pay your attorney.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And of course,
You know what, Lester?
In Silicon Valley, these are percentages, so it's going to go higher and higher. And this is essentially the same amount of money that a personal representative is going to get, or a professional fiduciary. So you can see, we've talked about, the length of time. We've talked about the families and this. This tells you exactly how much money you're going to be spending. You're going to be spending an awful lot of money. So it depends upon how big the estate is, but money like this, you're also going to be paying court costs. You may not have the money. In other words, the amount of money that goes to the heirs after everything is said and done can be restricted by the amount of money that you have to pay to get this done. So let me say this while we're here. Living trust, a good estate planning attorney is going to cost you about $2,500 to $3,500, depending upon what you have. Okay, I've got clients that have 2, 3 homes here in Silicon Valley. I have others that are just buying and don't have a lot of assets. Trust me, it's well worth it.
Right. Because it's probably expensive. Yes, it is.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot less expensive if you don't have a living
Mhm.
trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just having a living trust just saves an awful lot of money and headaches.
Right.
It's just,
Uh,
and the bottom line there says it all. Pay me now or pay me a lot more later.
Yeah. You use an example here. It says $500,000. You would pay $26,000.
Hmm.
That will be paid to an attorney.
Sure.
In comparison, so it's almost 10 times more. As opposed to paying 2,500, you'd be paying 26,000. but I like to contest one number over here. $500,000. There are no houses worth
That's right.
$500,000
That's
in
right.
Silicon Valley.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. So we just picked a number out here, but let's say you have a $2 million house. Well, you can do the math.
That's
You're going to be paying nearly $100,000.
as opposed to paying, $2,500.
Yeah.
So might as well save almost 97.5% of what it would have cost to just, if you die
Yeah.
intestate or if you don't have a
Hmm.
living trust.
Absolutely.
Does everything have to go through probate?
No, because there are some assets, even if you have a living will, as I had mentioned earlier, is that if you have, let's say you have an acre of land somewhere out in the valley, and it's like worth $20,000 or something, um, so you don't have to do that. But again, that's 1% of 1% that actually hits the probate courts. The other issue is that you also, how you hold the house. Now, I'm not an attorney, and I don't want to give any advice about how you hold it in there. But if you have some rights of survivorship, because it's possible things could go into probate if only one spouse dies,
Right.
then a lot of it has to do with how you're holding that. All of that stuff is done within the living trust itself. A good estate planning attorney is going to give you much more than just a living trust. And that would be a part of it. And also a will would be a part of that. And an advance directive would be a part of that. It covers everything. So these are examples of special types of probate. And I think we had talked about uh, people who forget to put the deed of the house in the trust, or if you do a refi or this kind of thing and you forget to put it back, or the lender, sometimes it's easier for lenders to take it out and then you have to go back and put it in. Let's see, those are those are special types of, and if you do that, then it's called a Hegstead petition, and it usually takes about 3 months, costs about $400 or $500 to get that, because you'll have to go to court. You'll have to tell the judge, what happened, and he's got to okay it, and then you can go ahead and do that. So that's
What if,
really the key.
what if you sign a real estate? If the person before he passes away, he signs a contract with the wife for a joint tenancy on a property. Uh, a joint tenancy basically says the right of survivalship.
Hmm.
So can he say, uh, no, I want he says no, I want my half to be given to someone else, or something in case there is a divorce.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question, and the answer is yes, it could. So again, I'm not an attorney. I use joint tenancy because it's probably the most popular one, but there are other ways of holding it, other ways of survivorship, such as community property and that kind of thing. Again, what what a client should do is go and talk to an estate planning attorney, and he or she can give you the legal definition of that, and which way she would recommend doing that. I can't do that, but they can do that.
Cool. Last but not least, you want to walk us through the last slide here?
Yeah. Well, I started off, and I want to finish with this as well. Hire an estate attorney and create a living trust. That's number one. There is no number two.
The
And
back.
everything else is going to be probate. So,
When
yeah,
when when number two fails, it's go back to number one. So
yeah, absolutely. And that's really it. And, so it's a real easy, I mean, there aren't options. Because the only option you have really is a living trust. The you don't an option Probate is not an option. You fall into probate if you don't have a living trust. That's where you're going. So in the state of California, that's where you're going. So your only option to prevent that is go see set up a time and meet with them because they do a great job.
Cool. Okay, this is going to be a little bit more lighthearted. I want to ask you, are there any fun stories you can tell us about uh, family disputes? You don't need to name anyone, obviously,
Mhm.
but any anecdotes you can share about folks that did pass away and did not have a probate. Sorry, did not have a will, did not have a
Mhm.
living trust.
Uh, no, well, I can tell you that, yeah. So what I can tell you is that if there's a property involved, property typically is going to be in Silicon Valley a bigger asset than typically stocks and bonds and 401ks and that kind of thing, because it's such an expensive place to live. So what may happen is one of the heirs wants to buy the house, and the other ones are saying, "Sure, absolutely, we can buy the house, and here's what the appraisal said." And this kind of stuff. Well, no, I don't think that's the case. I think I should be able to get it for a few hundred thousand less, and this kind of thing. And that causes major problems with people. And I know people who still don't speak to people because they've
Oh
done that,
wow.
within their family. So that's a common one. The other one is probably blame the personal representative. You're not moving fast enough. You hired this agent. I don't like that agent. You hired this attorney. I don't like that attorney. All sorts of different things. The brunt of everything, because the heirs want their money. That's what they want. And if your heirs want your inheritance, do a living trust because you don't go anywhere near the probate court with that if it's fully funded and it's done correctly. So those are some of the things I've experienced.
So, if anybody wants to reach out to, what would be the best way to contact you?
Oh, I think probably, let me think here. Uh, just my phone number, my
Okay,
cell, I have it,
I will, I
408.
will,
Yeah.
I'll put it in the description. So,
Okay, that sounds
I'll
good.
put your phone number in the
And
email address and
they can use my email address as well. Anything is fine.
okay, cool. And if they want to come to you for soccer lessons,
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm going to be teaching a bicycle kick tomorrow. You know, that's it. But you understand, I didn't say I'm demonstrating it.
I hope not,
No, no,
I mean, if you were to be demonstrating, a
right.
bicycle kick, I hope you have your will written out.
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, I've got my living trust right behind me in the bookshelf. So,
Okay, okay, before we go, one last question.
sure.
I'm gonna put you on the spot right now. Wayne Rooney's bicycle kick and Ganacho's by his bicycle kick, pick one.
Oh,
Did you see Ganacho's
yeah, I
bicycle
did.
kick?
I did. I did.
Which one?
I'll say Rooney's because it was a bigger stage. It was. You got to remember that was the Derby, the Manchester Derby.
That's right. But
So
this was against Everton, so
yeah,
so yeah.
yeah. I would say and I think the stage has a lot to do with it. Because this was a big, big thing, and it meant more to the people in Manchester to beat City, and so I would say Rooney's.
Yeah, it's okay. We're going to be watching those bicycle kicks for many, many
Hmm.
more decades. I'm
Hmm.
sure. But for an 18-year-old to do that, oh my goodness,
Oh,
it was
absolutely.
insane.
Well, even for a 20-something-year-old to do that, that ain't easy. So,
Yeah, and I beseech you, I'm still like my mentor around, please. So don't be demonstrating any bicycle kicks anytime soon, please.
no worries. No worries. Won't be doing that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining a little episode today. Really appreciate you if you stayed all the way to this part of the video. If you can subscribe and like the video, it'll help the channel a lot. And for more information on investing in Silicon Valley, don't forget to follow this channel, and we'll definitely give you any updates whenever we post new content. Thanks for joining us.